Be grateful you have a job. Those 6 words didn't just land, they struck me. He didn't shout them. He didn't even use a sharp tone. He said them while checking a notification on his phone, barely looking up from the ceramic mug he held. He swiped his thumb across the glass, smiling at whatever he saw, while I stood there, feeling like I was made of thin, brittle glass. I had just asked about the extra pay we were promised. Our team of 27 people had worked 14-hour days for 3 months straight. We missed everything. I missed the day my niece started walking. I missed the last weekend my grandmother was lucid enough to recognize me. We missed sleep. We missed living. We did this because he promised us a share of the profit from the big launch, $8,000 each. That money was my student loan payoff. For others, it was rent, a car repair, a breath of fresh air after drowning in bills for years. Yesterday, he sent an email. Due to unforeseen market shifts, all performance payouts are delayed indefinitely. Today, I saw his social media post, a photo of a sprawling white house on the sand. The caption read, "Hard work pays off. Baby #3 is finally mine." He bought a 3rd vacation home the same week he told us the company was broke. "I am grateful," I said. My voice was steady, too steady. "I just wanted to understand the timeline." "Stop worrying about timelines and start worrying about your output," he said, finally looking at me. "The investors are coming next month. If that presentation isn't perfect, nobody gets paid. Ever." I nodded. I turned around. I walked out. I didn't quit. I didn't scream. I went back to my workstation and I started working. But I wasn't working on the presentation he thought I was. Before I tell you exactly how I took apart his entire life piece by piece, I want to say thank you for spending your time with me today. If you've ever had a boss make you feel small so they could feel big, go ahead and hit that like button, and maybe subscribe if you want to hear more stories about people getting exactly what they deserve. It really helps me share this truth. My name is Rennie. I am not a loud person. I don't like conflicts. I don't raise my hand in meetings unless I have to. In a room full of people shouting to be heard, I am usually the one in the back, taking notes, watching how people move, listening to what they don't say. I am the senior data analyst. Most people think my job is boring. They think I just stare at grids and make charts turn green. But that's not what I do. My entire job is to find patterns in numbers that other people miss. I look for the story hidden inside the math. A number on a page is never just a number. It's a decision someone made. It's a footprint. Our CEO, a man named Gale, forgot that. Gale was the kind of man who thought he was the smartest person in any room, because he was usually the loudest. He wore suits that cost more than my first car. He had a smile that he could turn on and off like a light switch. When he wanted something from you, he was your best friend. When he was done with you, you were invisible. He thought I just made pretty charts for his slides. He thought I was furniture. He didn't know that for the last 3 years, I had memorized the rhythm of this company. I knew how much we spent on coffee beans. I knew how much the electric bill went up in July. I knew exactly how much revenue came in from the big launch. We had crushed our targets. We didn't just meet them, we destroyed them. The company account should have been overflowing. So when Gale told me to be grateful, something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap, it was quiet. It was the sound of a lock clicking open. I went back to my chair. I sat down. The office was buzzing around me. People were typing, talking on phones, rushing to meet deadlines. My friend, Benji, sat across from me. He looked terrible. He had dark circles under his eyes that looked like bruises. He was eating a vending machine sandwich for lunch because he was trying to save money for his daughter's braces. He was counting on that $8,000. "What did he say?" Benji asked, keeping his voice low. I looked at Benji. I looked at the sandwich. He said to be grateful. Benji let out a short, bitter laugh. "Right. Grateful. I'm grateful I can't pay my heating bill next month." "Don't worry," I said. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just saying it to be nice. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix it. How? Just do your work, Benji. Keep your head down. Let me handle the numbers. For the next 4 weeks, I was the perfect employee. I arrived early. I stayed late. I brought Gale his specific order of coffee, black, 2 sugars, no lid, every single morning. I smiled when he made jokes about trimming the fat during our weekly stand-up meetings. I watched him parade around the office. He would walk through the aisles, showing photos of the new beach house kitchen to the other executives. I could hear him bragging about the imported stone he used for the counters. It took 3 months to ship this marble from Italy, he told the VP of sales, laughing. Cost a fortune, but look at that vein, worth every penny. I sat 3 rows away, typing. I didn't look up, I just listened. Every night, after the cleaners had come and gone, when the overhead lights dimmed to their energy-saving mode, I went to work. I wasn't looking for stolen money. Gale was too smart to steal directly. He wouldn't just transfer cash from the company account to his own personal bank. That leaves a trail a rookie auditor could find. He wasn't stupid. He was arrogant, but not stupid. I was looking for where the profit went. It's a simple equation. Revenue minus expenses equals profit. We had the revenue. If the profit wasn't there, and it wasn't in the bonus pool, and it wasn't in the company savings, then the expenses had to be inflated. The money had to be leaving the building disguised as a business cost. I started with the obvious things. Travel budgets, client dinners, but those were normal, high, but within the allowed limits. Then I opened the operational expenses folder. This is where companies bury things. It's the junk drawer of accounting. Thousands of lines of data, software subscriptions, consulting fees, server maintenance, office supplies. It's designed to be boring. It's designed to make your eyes glaze over so you stop looking. I didn't stop looking. I filtered the data by date. I looked for anything new that started in the last 90 days, the exact timeline of our big project. I found a new category, client acquisition and research. It sounded legitimate. You need to spend money to get new clients. You need to do research to know where to sell. But the amounts were strange. Usually, research expenses are small and frequent. $50 for a survey tool, $500 for a focus group. These entries were massive. Round numbers, $15,000 on September 2nd, $22,500 on September 15th, $40,000 on September 30th, and the vendor name was just as vague, CMR Solutions. I searched our internal vendor database. No contact name, no phone number, just a billing address in a generic office park in a different state. Research, I whispered to myself in the empty office. It was a brilliant place to hide money. Research is impossible to prove or disprove easily. You can spend thousands on market testing, and nobody asks for a physical receipt because you can't hold a market test in your hand. You can claim you paid a consultant for strategy, and who is to say the advice wasn't worth 50 grand? But I am a pattern hunter, and I saw a pattern. I pulled the logs. I matched the dates of the invoices to the dates of Gale's business trips. On September 2nd, the day the $15,000 invoice was paid, Gale wasn't in the office. His calendar said, Client meeting, West Coast. I checked his company credit card statement, which I had access to for expense reporting. On September 2nd, he wasn't meeting a client. He rented a luxury convertible in Florida. He spent $400 at a seafood restaurant in Sarasota. I went back to the Instagram photo he had posted, the one of the White House. I zoomed in. The house was beautiful, modern, clean lines, right on the sand. But I wasn't looking at the house. I was looking at the reflection in the glass door. In the reflection, you could see a street sign. It was blurry, reversed, and tiny. Most people wouldn't even notice it. I took a screenshot. I opened it in my editing software. I flipped the image. I sharpened it. I increased the contrast. OCEANBLVD, Ocean Boulevard. I opened a map of Sarasota, Florida. I typed in Ocean Boulevard. It ran right along the beach. Now I had a location, and I had the suspicious payments to CMR Solutions. CMR Coastal Market Research, or maybe Coastal Management Realty. The tension in my chest grew heavier every day. I felt like I was carrying a grenade with the pin pulled, just holding the lever down with my thumb. One slip, one wrong look, and everything would blow up. If Gale caught me looking at these files, I would be fired for unauthorized access before I could prove anything. He would spin it. He would say I was incompetent, or crazy, or a thief. I needed hard proof, the kind of proof that doesn't need an explanation. I needed to link CMR Solutions directly to the house. I went to the Sarasota County Clerk's website. Public records are a beautiful thing. If you buy a house, the deed is public. The mortgage is public. I searched for Gale's name. Nothing. I searched for the company name. Nothing. Smart. He put it in a trust or an LLC to hide his name. So I searched by address. I scanned the map of Ocean Boulevard until I found the roofline that matched the photo. Number 4401. I pulled the deed for 4401 Ocean Boulevard. The owner was listed as Blue Horizon Trust. I felt a moment of panic. A trust is a dead end. You can't see who owns a trust easily. Had I hit a wall? Then I looked at the mortgage documents recorded on the same day. There, on the signature line for the borrower, was a scrawl I had seen 1,000 times on expense approvals and birthday cards. Gale. And underneath his signature, the title listed for the borrower, Manager, Blue Horizon Trust. I had him, but I needed to link the money. I looked at the down payment, listed on the closing statement. It was a massive number, $216,000. I went back to my client acquisition spreadsheet. I highlighted all the payments made to CMR Solutions in the last 3 months. I summed them up. The total came to $216,000. Exactly, down to the penny. He didn't even try to mix the funds. He simply funneled the exact amount he needed for his down payment out of the company, labeled it research, and wired it to a shell company that paid for his house. He stole our bonuses. He stole the profit we broke our backs for, and he used it to buy a beach house while telling us to be grateful we weren't unemployed. I sat back in my chair. It was 11:30 p.m. on a Thursday. The office was silent, but my ears were ringing. I saved everything. I made copies. I backed them up to a thumb drive. I backed them up to a personal cloud account. Then I waited. The investor meeting was 2 days away. This meeting was the biggest event of the year. The investors weren't just banks. They were the board of directors, the people who actually owned the company, the people who could hire and fire the CEO. They were flying in from New York, London, and Tokyo. They were coming to hear about the big launch. They were coming to see why the revenue was high, but the cash on hand was so low. Gale had a story ready for them. I had seen his slide deck. It was full of buzzwords: strategic reinvestment, infrastructure hardening, long-term growth cycles. He was going to tell them that the profit was gone because he had wisely reinvested it back into the company to make it stronger. He was going to lie to their faces, just like he lied to ours. The morning of the meeting, the atmosphere in the office was electric, but in a bad way. Everyone was on edge. Gale was shouting orders at his assistant. "Where is the updated deck?" he yelled, his voice echoing down the hall. "I need the font size larger on the revenue slide. They need to see the win, not the cost." I walked past him to get water. He didn't even see me. I was just a ghost in the machine. "Hey," he snapped, pointing a finger at me without looking at my face. "You, data girl." I stopped. "Yes, Gale, make sure the remote for the projector has fresh batteries. I don't want any technical screw-ups today. If that screen goes black, you're out. Understand?" "I understand," I said. I checked it myself. It works perfectly. "Good. Now get out of the way." I walked to the conference room. It was the big one, the one with the glass walls that overlooked the city. The long oval surface in the center was polished to a mirror shine. 12 heavy leather chairs were arranged perfectly. I went to the control terminal in the corner. This was my station. I was the one who clicked next slide. I was the one who controlled what the room saw. I loaded Gale's presentation. Q4, investor, update, final, V3, PPTX. Then, I inserted my thumb drive. I didn't replace his file. That would be too obvious. He would notice the first slide was wrong and stop me. Instead, I opened his presentation and went to the most important section, the section where he explains the expenses. The slide titled, Strategic Reinvestment in Market Research. In his version, this slide had a beautiful, vague bar chart showing growth potential going up and to the right. I deleted the chart. I replaced it with a split-screen image I had built the night before. On the left, the scanned invoice for $216,000 to CMR Solutions. On the right, the public deed for the beach house, showing a down payment of $216,000, signed by Gale. I added one more slide after that, a simple line graph I titled, The Delayed Bonus Pool versus the Beach House Down Payment. The lines overlapped perfectly. I saved the file. I pulled out my thumb drive. Now, the gun was loaded. People started filing in. These weren't the normal managers. These were the heavy hitters. Men and women in suits that looked like armor. They carried expensive pens and leather notebooks. They didn't smile. They took their seats. The air in the room felt thin, recycled, and cold. Gale entered last. He looked like a king. He had a fresh haircut. His suit was navy blue, sharp, tailored. He shook hands with the chairman of the board, a terrifying woman named Eleanor who was known for firing executives over lunch. Gale, Eleanor said, her voice dry, we are eager to see these numbers. The reports sent ahead were dense. We want clarity. Clarity is exactly what I have for you today, Eleanor, Gale said, beaming. He walked to the front of the room. He stood at the podium. He looked at me in the corner. He gave a quick, dismissive nod. I pressed the key. The title slide appeared. Welcome, everyone, Gale began. He was good. I had to give him that. He was smooth. He talked about the challenging economic climate. He talked about the grit of the team he told to be grateful. He talked about his vision for the future. We have had a lean quarter, he said, practicing the lie he had told us. We had to make hard choices. We had to delay staff incentives to prioritize infrastructure, to prioritize growth. It pains me, deeply, to ask my team to wait, but a leader does what is best for the ship, not the sailors. I saw Benji walking past the glass wall outside. He was carrying a stack of boxes, looking exhausted. Gale didn't even know Benji's name. Next slide, Gale commanded. I pressed the key. The revenue numbers popped up, strong, impressive. As you can see, our top-line revenue is excellent, Gale said, gesturing to the glowing rectangle behind him. But margins are tight. We are fighting a war for talent, a war for market share. He paused for effect. He looked grave. That is why, he continued, we made a bold decision this quarter. We decided to invest heavily in high-level client acquisition. We spent a significant portion of our liquidity on a research project that will open up the Southern Territories. It was expensive, yes, but necessary. Eleanor leaned forward. This research, she said, it absorbed the entire bonus pool? It did, Gale said, nodding solemnly. And more. But the data we got back, it's a game changer. My heart hammered against my ribs like a frantic bird in a cage. My palms were damp. This was it. There was no going back. If I did this, I would be fired. I might be sued. I might never work in this industry again. But then I looked at Gale's shoes. Italian leather. Shiny. I thought about his baby hash 3. I thought about Benji's sandwich. I thought about the 6 words. Be grateful you have a job. Show them the projections, Gale said, turning his back to the screen to face the investors. Next slide. I didn't look at the screen. I looked at Eleanor. I pressed the key. The room did not gasp. It went completely still. The kind of stillness that happens right before a storm breaks, when the air pressure drops so low your ears pop. Gale didn't see it at first. He was looking at the investors, expecting them to nod, expecting them to be impressed by his fake chart. Instead, he saw their expressions change. Eleanor's eyebrows shot up, her mouth opened slightly. The man next to her squinted, then put on his glasses, then leaned in closer. Gale kept talking. This expenditure, he continued, pointing blindly at the screen behind him, was absolutely vital for our expansion. The metrics. He trailed off. He realized nobody was looking at him. They were staring past him, at the wall. The metrics. He tried again, a little uncertainty creeping into his smooth voice. If you look at the growth curve, Gale, Eleanor said. Her voice wasn't dry anymore. It was dangerously soft. Yes? Gale smiled, confused. What is this? It's the projection for Q1, Gale said. He turned around to point at the chart. I watched the color drain from his face. It didn't happen all at once. It was like watching paint dry. A slow, gray realization. He froze. His hand was still raised in the air, pointing. He wasn't pointing at a growth curve. He was pointing at his own signature on a mortgage deed. On the left side of the screen, the invoice to CMR Solutions for $216,000 was blown up large enough for everyone to read the fine print. On the right side, the deed for the house on Ocean Boulevard, highlighted in bright yellow, by me, was the matching dollar amount, $216,000. Gale started. He blinked. He looked at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. This is the wrong slide. Is it? Eleanor asked. She stood up. She wasn't tall, but in that moment, she looked 10 feet tall, because the dates seemed to match perfectly, Gail. October 14th for the withdrawal, October 15th for the purchase. This is a glitch, Gail stammered. He was sweating now. I could see the sheen on his forehead. The file must be corrupted. Tech support. Where is tech support? Tech support. He glared at me. His eyes were wide, frantic. Fix it, he hissed at me. Shut it down. I didn't move. I sat at my station, my hands folded, in my lap. The numbers aren't corrupted, Gail, I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. It wasn't the voice of the quiet data analyst. It was the voice of someone who was done. What? He snapped. The files you are looking at are the raw expense reports matched against public real estate records, I said, speaking clearly so everyone could hear. The research budget didn't go to client acquisition. It went to a title company in Sarasota. You, Gail took a step toward me. You, little. Sit down, Gail, Eleanor commanded. He stopped. He looked at the door, as if thinking about running. I didn't stop there, I said. I hit the next key. The slide changed. Now it showed the graph. The delayed employee bonus pool versus urgent marble kitchen renovation. I had matched the invoices he submitted for office repairs, $14,000, with the photo from his public Instagram showing his new marble countertops. The timestamps were identical. He billed the company for office repairs, I explained to the room. But we haven't had any repairs done. The third-floor bathroom has been leaking for 6 months. But Gail's kitchen in his new beach house got a very expensive upgrade last week. The room erupted. This is preposterous, Gail shouted, trying to regain control. She's a disgruntled employee. She's making this up. These are deep fakes. I emailed the full packet to the board members 5 minutes ago, I said calmly. It includes the bank transfer IDs, the vendor verification logs, and the metadata from your uploads. It's all there. Eleanor checked her tablet. She scrolled for a few seconds. The room was deadly silent again, except for Gail's heavy breathing. She looked up at him. She took off her glasses. Security, she said, not shouting, but projecting her voice to the hallway. 2 uniformed guards were already standing by the door. I had tipped them off that there might be a disturbance. They stepped in. Escort him out, Eleanor said. She didn't even look at Gail anymore. She looked at the screen. She looked at the evidence of his greed. You can't do this, Gail screamed. His smooth mask was gone. He looked ugly, red-faced, and desperate. I built this company. I earned that money. They are nothing. They are just gears. He pointed at me. You're fired. You hear me? You're done. Actually, Eleanor said. You are. The guards took Gail by the arms. He tried to shake them off, but they were firm. They walked him out of the conference room. He didn't get to pack a box. He didn't get to say goodbye. Security walked him past our desks, past the 27 people he had told to be grateful. I watched through the glass wall. I saw Benji stand up. I saw the others stand up. They watched him get dragged out. Gail looked at the floor the entire time. He couldn't meet their gaze. I sat alone in the corner of the conference room. The investors were talking amongst themselves. Urgent whispers. Phone calls being made. Eleanor turned to me. She looked tired. She looked at me for a long time. What is your name? She asked. Rennie, I said. Well, Rennie, she said. You have caused quite a mess today. I swallowed hard. I was ready. I knew this was the end of my job. You don't humiliate the CEO and get to stay. Even if you're right, it disrupts the hierarchy. I know, I said. I'll pack my things. Wait, she said. She walked over to the control terminal. She looked at the split-screen image of the house one last time. You found this buried in the operational logs? She asked. Yes. And you linked it to the public records yourself? Yes. How long did it take you? 3 weeks of nights. She nodded. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. We pay auditors a fortune to find things like this, she said. And they missed it. You didn't. She reached into her bag and pulled out a notebook. She wrote something down. Go back to your desk, Rennie. Don't pack anything yet. We have a lot to discuss. I walked back to my desk. The carpet felt softer under my feet. The hum of the air conditioning didn't sound like a machine anymore. It sounded like breath returning to a body that had been holding it for too long. The office was weirdly quiet, but not the scary kind of quiet. It was the kind of quiet where everyone is waiting for the signal that it's safe to move. Benji was standing at his desk. He was holding a stapler, but he wasn't stapling anything. He was just gripping it, his knuckles white. "Rennie?" he whispered. I saw security. I sat down in my chair. I adjusted my monitor. I put my hand on my mouse. "He's gone, Benji," I said. "Gone for the day? Gone for good." He dropped the stapler. It made a loud clack on the laminate desktop. "What did you do?" "I just showed them the receipts," I said. "I showed them the cost of the view. For the next 6 hours, nobody really worked. We pretended to. We moved windows around on our screens. We answered emails with short sentences. But really, we were all watching the corner office. The blinds were drawn. We could see shadows moving inside. The board of directors, Eleanor, they were in there, dissecting the remains of Gail's empire. At 4 p.m., an email went out to the entire company. Subject: Leadership update from the board of directors. Effective immediately, Gail redacted has been relieved of his duties as CEO. Eleanor Vance will assume the role of interim CEO. We ask for your patience as we conduct a thorough internal review. Business operations will continue as normal. Business as normal? Benji read aloud. He slumped into his chair. That means they're keeping the money, Rennie. Internal review is corporate speak for, we are going to find a way to keep every penny to cover our losses. I felt a cold spike in my stomach. Benji was usually right about these things. The investors were angry about the fraud, yes, but they were also greedy. They had just lost $250,000 in cash. They weren't going to just hand out checks to us out of the goodness of their hearts. Not if I can help it, I said. The next morning, the suits arrived. They weren't the investors this time. These were the forensic accountants, the auditors. They wore gray suits and carried briefcases that looked like they contained bomb defusal kits. They marched into the conference room, the same room where I had destroyed Gail's career less than 24 hours ago, and set up a war room. At 10 a.m., my desk phone rang. "Rennie? This is Eleanor. Please come to the conference room." I stood up. Benji grabbed my wrist. "Be careful," he said. "They might be looking for a scapegoat. You access those files without permission." "I know," I said. I walked into the conference room. The table was covered in paper. The screen where I had projected the deed was now displaying a complex flowchart of bank accounts. Eleanor sat at the head of the table. She looked tired. Her glasses were on a chain around her neck. "This is Rennie," Eleanor said to the room of gray suits. "She's the one who found the leak." The head auditor, a man with a mustache that looked like a bristle brush, looked at me over the rim of his spectacles. "You have a unique way of organizing data, young lady." "I look for the story," I said. "Well," Eleanor said, "the story isn't over. We have a problem." She slid a piece of paper toward me. "We fired Gail," she said, "but the money is gone. He moved it into that Blue Horizon Trust to buy the house. The trust is a separate legal entity. Our lawyers are saying it could take years to sue the trust and get the funds back. By then, the legal fees will have eaten up everything." She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw vulnerability in her face. "The investors are panicking, Rennie. They want to cut costs to make up for the loss. They are talking about layoffs. They are talking about cutting the team by 50%. My heart stopped. I had gotten Gail fired, but in doing so, I might have just gotten half my friends fired too. If the money was locked in a legal box, the company was still broke. Gail still won. He would lose his job, sure, but he would keep the house, and we would lose our livelihoods. "There has to be a way," I said. "A trust is only safe if it's totally separate from the individual. If he mixed his personal life with the trust, we can pierce the veil. We can claim the assets immediately." "We've looked," the auditor said, tapping his pen. "The paperwork is clean." "He was careful." "He wasn't careful," I said. "He was arrogant. There's a difference." I looked at the flowchart on the screen. "Let me help," I said. "Give me access to everything, not just the expense reports. Give me his company email archives. Give me the metadata from his phone syncs. Give me the server logs." Eleanor looked at the auditor. The auditor shrugged. "We charge $400 an hour, ma'am. If she wants to do the grunt work for free, let her." Eleanor looked back at me. "You have 24 hours, Rennie. After that, I have to submit the budget cuts to the board. 24 hours to save 27 jobs." I didn't go home that night. I sat in the conference room, surrounded by the gray suits who eventually packed up and went to their hotels at 6 p.m. They left me alone with the glowing screens. I went through everything. I read thousands of emails. Most were boring. Approvals for marketing copy. Complaints about the coffee machine. I was looking for a crack in the armor. I needed to find one instance where Gail used the Blue Horizon Trust for something personal that wasn't the house. Something small. Something stupid. If I could prove he treated the trust like his personal wallet, the lawyers could dissolve it and seize the house instantly. It was 3 a.m. when I found it. It wasn't in a spreadsheet. It was in a deleted items folder in his email. Gail had forwarded an email from his wife to his work address. The subject line was, puppy training. They had bought a purebred dog, a golden retriever. I opened the attachment. It was an invoice from a high-end dog breeder in Kentucky. The cost was $4,500. I looked at the payment method on the invoice. It wasn't a credit card. It was a direct wire transfer. The sender account number ended in 8,892. I frantically switched windows to the auditor's list of accounts. I scanned the list for 8,892. There it was, account 8,892, Blue Horizon Trust, operating fund. I laughed. It was a dry, raspy sound in the empty room. He had used the shell company, the company meant to hide his stolen millions, to buy a dog, because he was arrogant, because he thought the money was his, because he couldn't be bothered to switch bank accounts. I printed the email. I printed the invoice. I printed the bank log. I stapled them together. I laid my head down on the cool mahogany table and fell asleep. I woke up to the smell of coffee. Eleanor was standing over me. It was 7 a.m. She placed a cup from the break room next to my hand. "You're drooling on the quarterly projections," she said gently. I sat up, wiping my mouth. I grabbed the stapled packet. "I got him," I said. I slid the papers to her. She read them. She read them again. A slow smile spread across her face. It wasn't a nice smile. It was a shark's smile. "He used the corporate trust to buy a pet," she whispered. "That idiot." "Pierce the veil," I said. "The trust isn't a separate entity. It's his piggy bank. The assets aren't protected." "No," she said. "They certainly are not." She pulled out her phone. She didn't call the auditors. She called the company's chief legal counsel. "Harold, it's Eleanor. Wake up. We have him. Prepare the seizure order. We're taking the house." The next 2 weeks were a blur, but a good kind of blur. The news broke on a Tuesday. The company lawyers had filed an emergency injunction. Because of the evidence I found, the dog invoice, the judge ruled that Gail's assets were fair game. The research money was clawed back. The beach house was seized by the company as collateral to repay the stolen funds. Gail tried to fight it. We heard rumors that he was calling board members, crying, threatening, begging. He claimed it was a mistake. He claimed the dog was for office security. Nobody listened. The for sale sign went up on the house on Ocean Boulevard 3 days later. But the atmosphere in the office was still tense. We knew the money was coming back to the company, but we didn't know if it was coming to us. The internal review was still happening. Benji was losing hope. "They're going to keep it, Rennie," he said every day at lunch. "They're going to say they need it to stabilize the stock price." I didn't say anything. I just kept doing my job. I kept analyzing the data. 2 days later, Eleanor's assistant came to my desk. "She wants to see you." The office went still. Everyone watched me stand up. They knew I had been working with the auditors. They knew I was the one who pulled the trigger, but they didn't know if I was the hero or the villain yet. I walked into the CEO's office. Eleanor was sitting behind the desk, Gail's old desk. She had removed all his trinkets. The desk was clean. "Sit down, Rennie." I sat. She looked tired but kind. She didn't waste time. "We can't keep you in your current role," she said. My stomach dropped. I had expected this, in a way. I had disrupted the order. I knew too much. "It would be complicated," she continued, "given the breach of protocol. You hacked company files. You accessed private data. Technically, it's a fireable offense." I nodded. I felt tears pricking my eyelids, but I refused to let them fall. "I understand. I'll pack my things." "However," she said, raising her voice slightly. I stopped. "We need someone who understands our financial leaks better than our auditors do. We need someone who can spot a lie in a spreadsheet from a mile away." She picked up a folder. "We're creating a new position, Internal Compliance Director. You would report directly to the board. No middle management. Your job is to make sure nobody, not even the CEO, ever lies to us again. She slid the folder across the desk. Inside was a contract. The salary was double what I was making now. And this, she said, sliding a thick white envelope across the polished wood, is for the team. I looked at the envelope. What is it? Open it. I opened the flap. Inside was a stack of checks. The house went into escrow yesterday, Eleanor said. A cash buyer. We recovered the full amount, plus damages. I pulled out the first check. It was made out to Benji. The amount wasn't $8,000. It was $12,000. We added interest, Eleanor said, her eyes twinkling. And a hardship bonus for the delay. You can distribute them. I walked out of that office feeling like I was floating. I didn't just walk. I glided. I walked straight to the bullpen. I stood in the center of the room. 27 faces turned toward me. They looked scared. They thought I was being walked out by security. I held up the envelope. He told us to be grateful, I said. My voice was loud this time. I wanted everyone to hear. He told us to be grateful we had jobs. I ripped the envelope open. Well, I said, handing the first check to Benji. I think we should be grateful. Grateful that he bought that house so we could sell it. Benji looked at the check. He looked at the number. He dropped into his chair and put his hands over his face. I saw his shoulders shaking. I handed out every single check. There was shouting. There was hugging. People were crying. One guy from marketing actually jumped on his desk. It was chaos. It was beautiful. That night, I stayed late one last time. Not to work, just to clean up my old desk before moving to my new office. I walked to the window. I looked out at the city lights. I thought about the 6 words that started it all. Be grateful you have a job. I took out my phone. A notification popped up. It was a Zillow alert I had set weeks ago, back when I was hunting him. Price drop, 4,401 Ocean Blivid, Sarasota, FL. Status, sold, sale price, $1.8 million. I tapped on the notification. The listing was updated. It showed the photos of the house, the beautiful white walls, the view of the sand, and the kitchen with the imported Italian marble countertops that he had bragged about. The countertops that cost more than my car. I zoomed in on the photo. They were beautiful. And now, they paid for Benji's daughter's braces. They paid for my student loans. They paid for the honeymoon our receptionist had canceled. Gail had wanted a legacy. He wanted a monument to his success. He got one. We were his legacy. Every time we paid a bill, every time we took a breath of fresh air, every time we smiled at work, we were spending his money. I swiped the notification away. I put my phone in my pocket. I grabbed my bag. I turned off the light. Thank you, Gail, I whispered into the dark room. Then I walked out, and I didn't look back. Thank you so much for listening. It's crazy how 6 little words can change everything, right? If you enjoyed seeing the bad guy get exactly what was coming to him, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And tell me in the comments, what's the worst thing a boss has ever said to you? I read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. See you next time.